So next week, the theme for the Quest Wednesdays is radical self-love. And I'm curious, when you hear that phrase, yeah, what comes up for you?
The first thing that came up for me was fear, like fear and, who do you think you are to even consider radical self-love? Who do you think you are, Darren? And I think I conflate my inner messaging conflates radical self-love with selfishness, which I know isn't the same thing, but actually I know that part of my messaging around radical self-love is don't be selfish. And, it's something I learned as a child, and it's something, so I have to make a distinction between those two. And then really what I realized is it's really about having an awareness about what do I need and being able to ask for it. So for me, an act of radical self-love is asking for help and saying what I need, expression. And I do struggle with those. So quite a few years ago, I came up with this mantra, which is when I'm struggling, rather than going into my self-sufficiency mode, which is a default I learned at an earlier age, I have the mantra of tell 3 people or ask 3 people. And I remember I was struggling with a relationship a few years ago, and I did turn to 3 people and ask them for support and help in that process. And for me, that was an act of radical self-love. It was a way of building new neurological pathways in terms of how I experience challenge. So asking for help and understanding what I need are acts of radical self-love for me. How about you, Ade?
Wow, I love that. Um, yeah, there is such power in those 3 words, actually. What comes up for me is self-love was challenging enough. And then to put radical in front of it, it's like, good grief, that is really, really tough. I actually had never come across those 3 words together until I read the book, The Body's Not an Apology, last year. And what really struck me about radical is how thorough that is. Like it goes to the core. To actually say radical self-love, it really goes to my essence. And that scariness that you talk about really comes up for me when I think of those 3 things together. So for me, what comes to mind is that it is a practice. In order for it to be radical, it needs to be something that is consistent, that is there every moment in my consciousness. I'm either moving away from it or I'm moving towards it. So for me, what comes up is around how I can self-sabotage myself so that I'm not moving towards that radical self-love. How my own sense of feeling of unworthiness can get in the way of that radical self-love. So there is something there for me, which is around I need to be so conscious of the fact that I am good enough, that I am worthy of connection, of love, of belonging, in order for me to really lean into the radical self-love. I think I need to sort of calm the storm, all that stuff in my head, in order for me to even get a glimpse of that radical self-love. Because just thinking about it in itself, it's overwhelming.
Mm. Yeah, it's a very challenging proposition, I think. And I think it's going to lead to some very deep conversations around what does it take, what is required for radical self-love to even be glimpsed, as you said, just to be glimpsed, let alone practiced. So I'm really looking forward to delving into this and seeing what the other participants have to say about their experiences and their challenges with it.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it too. I think it's going to be very rich.